here I am again, back to Squad. It's been a while since I've covered this game on the channel, and to be honest, I feel a bit bad about that. Because in the current gaming market we find ourselves in these days, where games release half-assed or are rushed by publishers, or with some just seeming to lose all sense of identity in the first place, Squad is a game that I've continued to respect, adore, and recommend to my friends over the years of its lifespan. And I wanted to talk a bit about why. G'day there once again viewers, your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today I want to write a little love letter to what I consider to be the best tactical combined arms shooter on the market right now, Squad. Now, while this is a love letter, it has to be said that 2021 was, much like it was for all of us, a year of troubles for Squad. Through 2021, the developers had technical issues with planned overhauls to the core of the game, and I'm sure that with COVID forcing remote working arrangements, it certainly slowed them down just that tad bit more. The game was left without any significant updates for around 6 months between August last year and February this year, but the Squad devs are back in action and they are back in force. Update 2.12, which launched back in February, brought about a huge overhaul of the game's visuals, normalizing the handling of shadows to ensure there wasn't a huge distinct advantage gained by playing on a lower shadow quality setting as far as target spotting was concerned. Muzzle flash brightness was improved to allow for easier target acquisition and, in my opinion, more epic looking firefights. And the game's lighting was also overhauled with the intent of creating better contrast in light and dark spaces and making the colors of the map pop to provide a more immersive experience. But fear not, this was not done at the cost of frame rates, and the game still runs great, if not better than ever in my experience. It has to be said that my rig has seen some updates to the graphic card department lately, so that might be a small factor there as well, just a small one. But that's not the best part for me. The latest update, 2.15, brought about a bunch of improvements to the constructible emplacements available to forward operating bases that make them a lot more defensible. But the flagship feature has to be the addition of the Australian Defence Force faction, which has to be said, as an Australian, makes me one happy first-person shooter player to see some Aussie representation in a game like this. To see, some Aussie weaponry, Aussie vehicles, and some Aussie voice acting that isn't too overdone to the point of sounding like a dollar store Croc Dundee, looking at you Fuse from Apex. It's really nice to see. The Aussie faction feels like a ton of fun to play, and it's great to see them in the mix now. I'd be keen to see some more conventional Op4 factions come to the game now, as most layers see you either taking on the Russians or the Middle Eastern Alliance. So yeah, factions-wise, I think that'll be a great little expansion of gameplay variety at this point, but nonetheless, Australian representation is a big plus for me. It's really great to see the developers at Offworld Industries back in action and pushing out some regular updates for the game once again. And with their updates, it's always been clear to me that Offworld have had a clear vision as to what they want to create out of this game from the get-go as far as the experience is concerned. And that's why I've always held this game in such high regard. That's the fact that the developers put the experience at the forefront and are willing to address the tough technical issues with the game that have been present since the really rough launch, all with the intent of dialing in on the perfect experience they've been aiming for. Whether this be the recent graphics normalization for shadows across the board, or it be the animation overhaul they did for the game years ago, all of these were very, very difficult problems to solve, but they have, and the game is better for it. I've always held that games, they're designed with the intent of making money. No one goes into game development for the sake of it nowadays, and that's more than fine. But you can always tell when a game developer, or a publisher, which I admit is more often the cause than not here, goes into a project to make money first and craft an experience later. Squad crafts the experience and then lets the experience do the talking for the game, and it shows. For one, Squad is one of the few first-person shooters on the market nowadays that understands the value of choice and limitations all at once. You have the option to take a collection of roles and vehicles under your wing at the start of the game, but in saying that, there are only so many of that role or of that vehicle available to your entire team, let alone to your squad. And depending on their ability to have a huge impact on the battlefield, that limitation could be a lot stronger than you may think. For example, there are only 2 heavy anti-tank or HAT infantry kits available per faction at any given time. So if your squad of 9 doesn't get first dibs on one of those 2 HAT kits, you don't get a HAT kit at all. You have to rely on other squads. There's also only 1 marksman kit available per squad, assuming your allotted fire support roles in the squad haven't been already allocated to something like a light anti-tank kit, a grenadier, an automatic rifleman, so on and so forth. There's a sense of weight that's applied to you as as a player every time you take one of these special kits. Only you can potentially complete this role in your squad, let alone your whole team at times. You are responsible for it, and when you pull it off successfully, it feels more rewarding, and because of this, you feel like the hero that changed the tide of the battle. This applies tenfold to vehicles, and as a result, Squad feels like one of the, if not the most balanced combined arms experience out there. There's a lot of games nowadays that opt to take on board the combined arms gameplay style with the intent of offering more value to more kinds of players via freedom of choice. If you don't like infantry, you can play in a vehicle. So we've got something for you, so on and so forth. But Squad has a different approach here that I thoroughly enjoy. The freedom of wanting to play a vehicle for a match and being able to do so is there, but there's also a sense of weight and importance to that vehicle because if it gets destroyed, there is a respawn timer attached to it. And we aren't talking your standard 1, 2, 3, even 5-minute respawn timers if you're in something as big as a tank. We're talking 15 to 20 minutes. You, in that role, are effectively knocked out of the game for a good segment of said match. You can't just go back to base and grab a new one, you have to wait, and that could lead to a huge tactical gap in your team's ability to perform. And what this does is it not only creates a sense of urgency for the vehicles and infantry on one team to work with each other, to preserve one if the other gets in a sticky situation, but it also creates a more rewarding experience if you butt heads with a vehicle and win. In a tank versus tank engagement, if you come out on top, congratulations, you have made a huge tactical play out of that. You could change the course of the fight by now switching to more of an anti-infantry role and just suppress the hell out of some key tactical spawn locations. But better yet, say you're an infantry player playing an anti-tank kit and you proceed to track an IFV or disable its engine. Boom, you've taken a vehicle out of contention and have made it easier for a secured kill. And on the other end, the players in said IFV now have to communicate with each other to crawl their way out of a crappy situation, maybe even call in a squad for support or risk losing that vehicle for a lot of time. What you have here is a fitting amount of reward for each outcome for each player. It feels worthwhile playing the anti-tank kit and knowing you're at risk of being completely obliterated by a gun the size of yourself, because if you're successful, you have a meaningful, long-term impact on the outcome of the game. There is an element of important consequence at play by that interaction that can't be undone by too short of a respawn timer on the force multiplier asset you just took out. And with that, the gameplay at its core and the player base that plays it encourages an element of pacing. Engagements when they happen are flat out, sometimes disorientating, but with excellent coordination and communication with your team, you can come out on top. Your contribution to that outcome or lack of an outcome doesn't just have to come via kills either. It can be via supportive outcomes as well. A machine gunner achieves just as much as a rifleman does who scores accurate kills by just spraying down an area with suppressive fire and making it difficult for enemies to work up the courage to peek over that little bit of cover that you're suppressing. I played a game recently as the Australians where my squad's light anti-tank kit tracked and disabled an enemy BMP-2, but its turret and crew was still alive and firing back inside. As the grenadier, I made use of my smoke grenades to ensure the BMP couldn't get a clean line of sight on us, which allowed our AT to move to a position to deliver the killing blow. There's a sense of accomplishment and weight to that moment, and that's something that's not reflected in scoreboard statistics, which is something that not many games pride themselves on nowadays. Squad does, and the experience, I feel, shows for it a lot. The gameplay doesn't hook you on progression or season passes or cosmetics, it hooks you on the core gameplay experience. And I have to say that not a lot of games can say they can do that in this day and age. Nowadays, it's all about how do we entice game time via unlocks or via some arbitrary timed exclusive event that demands game time to complete. You know what I mean. With Squad, it's all about getting you in the game for the sake of enjoying what the game has to offer. And that to me has always been a breath of fresh air. To me, that's what makes Squad the best combined arms first-person shooter game on the market right now for PC. And sure, you can have a bad match or two from time to time, but I guarantee you it is made up for with some of the epic moments you can have in this game, playing as an infantry player, as a specialist kit, in a vehicle, or hell, sometimes even just running the very mundane Logi run back to base for resupply. And after the game's latest free-to-play weekend, seeing a peak concurrent player base turnout of over 20,000, that's 20 times more than Battlefield 2042, by the way, it makes me really happy to see the game getting some attention. As I write this video, after the free-to-play weekend has ended, Squad still seems to be sitting at around 8,000 active concurrent players during Australian prime time. And those are some pretty big numbers for us Aussies and everyone in the wider Oceania region on the PC in the, slightly off the beaten path shooter world. It has to be said. So with that said, ladies and gentlemen, subscribers or new viewers alike, I want to hear from you. If you've stumbled across this video, are you a Squad player? If so, why so? If not, why not? Let's get some conversations going down below, guys. I'd love to hear what everyone's thoughts are on Squad in its current day and age. If you enjoyed today's video, be sure to backhand the like button. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. If you didn't enjoy the video, well, that dislike button works just as well, even though YouTube doesn't want you to believe so. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It'd be great to have you guys here for the long run as we continue to, cover more first-person shooter titles. All my social media links are linked down below, as per always, if you guys want to help support the channel further on other mediums too. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Take care, guys. Have a good one.